Peace. Welcome to another HULC episode. Episode 55. I think it says 54 on the thumbnail, but it is 55 if memory serves me correct. I'm glad you're taking time out of your Sunday evening to kind of hang out with us. We're going to make this a every Sunday thing just to kind of warm this thing up. Of course, hip-hop. HULC stands for Hip Hop Urban Life Coach. So if you have questions today, serious questions, you know, stuff that you really want Black Dot to answer, I'm going to do my best to answer those questions for you. So hang tight, and we're going to get rocking. I'm going to get right to a few questions that somebody asked earlier today. Okay, first of all, hello, Mama Dot.
Peace. Hey, how's it going?
Okay, that's much better than last week.
Sound much better?
Much better.
Can everybody hear me?
Much better because you have a mic this time.
Okay. Put your questions in the chat and we will get to as many as we can.
Now we're talking. Now we're cooking with hot grease.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so John Dak Holiday said, do you watch your diet, use the renal diet, or do you take binders to keep your phosphorus low, Dot? And this is a kidney warrior question for those who are dealing with kidney failure or struggling with, dialysis and things of that nature. And so I follow a very strenuous diet when possible. The diet that they try to put you on is almost impossible to keep and still keep your sanity. I don't live by numbers. And so every month they're taking your blood and they're giving you these parameters, and then you find yourself becoming a prisoner of numbers. That's not what life is about under any circumstances. Now, with that being said, if you have cancer or diabetes or whatever you're fighting and facing, it is imperative that you change your diet. You cannot live the same way that puts you in those conditions, because then that makes you insane. However, there are certain rules that can be bent and certain rules that can be broken based on where you are, with your diet. So in terms of binders, I'll take Tums. Tums is a calcified, how regular Tums for antacid and things of that nature, because I find that the binders do something to my stool and my stomach. And so everything, you have to become a scientist, and limit as much prescription drugs as possible. Remember, I don't take any prescription drugs whatsoever. It's the only way I can survive 19 and a half years in the situation I'm in. However, don't let your ego screw you from, if you have to take something for a temporary period until you find an alternative. And so don't let your ego get involved with this. This is about survival. This is about life. This is not about dialysis. This is about livalysis. And so by understanding those principles, you put yourself in the best position to win. I'll ask one more question that came in. Do you feel the United, this is by Amin Sadat Black. Do you feel the United States is the best country in the world? If not, what countries should we check out? That's an open-ended question, and it's a question about perspective. And so because we live here, I'm a little biased. Even the poor people here in the United States have opportunities and programs, and there's shelters, there are soup kitchens, there's so-called democracy, so-called freedom of speech, and we understand that these are relative terms being used, as opposed to some other countries where they're fighting just to get something to eat. They're fighting for different aspects of democracy that we have just become accustomed to, or even feel privileged in a sense. Now, with that being said, there are other places. The world is a huge place. So there are other places that treat the original man and woman with respect, that it's clean, their laws are great. I'm just not too accustomed to, I've been to London, Holland, Paris, I've been to Germany, I've been all throughout, the Bermuda, I've been to Canada, and racism is a worldwide global institution. And so for the original man, it's tough. But from someone else's perspective, America is the big bad bully. And, they would love to see America fall. And America is going to have to pay some retribution for passing out democracy in other countries and stealing other countries' resources, iridium, gold, diamonds, oil. We are, notorious for doing a lot of things to other people under the guise of providing them democracy. And so that's a open-ended question, but from where I sit, with an opportunity in spite of racism, in spite of discrimination, in spite of police brutality, if I apply myself, I can live what I feel is a decent life here, under the physical conditions, because, this is a spiritual war that we're fighting. So that will be the best way I can answer that question. Now, if you ask somebody from a third world country that can barely have fresh water, they'll tell you America is paradise. And so it is a matter of perspective.
Okay. Peace.
Peace.
Let's get into relationships.
Okay.
All right? What do you think it takes for the youth today to have a successful relationship?
Wow, that's a very great question, Mama Dot, because the youth are so infatuated with what other people think about them. They're so influenced by social media. They're so influenced by material things. Social media has pitted men against women, women against men. And I'm finding that the youth are after something very empty. They're not after anything substantial. And I'm feeling that they don't spend time getting to know people and building relationship on, real tangible levels. They're after this fleeting thing that social media has created, where the man, if I come out with 7 of my girls, he needs to pick up the bill, and all of these weird things that when I was a teenager or young, it really wasn't about that. It really was about trying to get to know somebody, growing. And another thing, I find that young people, when you hear them talk, from the women's perspective and the men, they want the perfect person at 22 years old. And I'm like, that's humanly impossible. They want a 6'2" man. He making, 7 figures. He's driving fancy cars. He's able to get my hair done, my nails done. He's gorgeous. He's got a 6-pack. He can pipe me. He can do all of these. And I'm like, ain't no men in the world doing all of those things.
Sounds like a Superman.
It sounds like a Superman, especially at 22 and 23. So, and then when you ask them, well, what are you bringing to the table where you can match the vibration of what you're asking for? And they all get stuck because they think because they have a BBL or something else that's all men after. Now, very shallow men, that is all they're after. But once I conquer that, it's the next chick with a BBL coming up behind you. And so there has to be more. And I think young people need to develop patience. I think it is important to date, to get around and see what it is you like. But you have to want something, and then you also have to be able to want to build something together. I always tell my daughter, she's 22 years old, when you're talking to young men, if he has dreams, real, legitimate dreams, and of course, he's about it, he's working, he's clean, he's got an education and some other things, that's enough to work with because you want a man with direction and vision that you as a woman could add on to that and build, and vice versa. He could see your vision, see your dreams, and help each other. But this generation is a microwave. They want it all instantly, and they're losing. They're
Yeah.
losing out on a lot.
Yeah. Speaking of, as long as he has dreams, potential.
Yes,
If he has a little potential.
potential.
Right?
Potential,
We
because
can work with
potential
that.
means we can work with that. Because, most guys who are young, we're wet behind the ears. We don't know fully what we want to do in life. But if he has his head and she has her head on right, we can work with that.
Yeah, we could work with that.
Yes.
Okay, remember, get your questions in here.
All right, let me answer Superstar Rel, because he a paying customer. Hold on. What does his question say? I can't. Oh, who is more important, who you pray to versus who is actually doing the praying? Family and friends say they will pray for me, but I rarely see results. Wow, which is more important, who you pray to versus who is actually doing the praying? I'm going to say he or who is doing the praying, because he who is doing the praying is the one that is putting out a specific signature that they are requesting whatever their belief system is from the universe to respond to. Now, obviously, if you can get a bunch of people who are in synchronicity with the same prayer, with the same motive, the same intent, it will accelerate that process if the intention is pure and correct. But the original signature, I am praying or meditating, it's really all dependent on how you look at it. And so I am expecting a specific response based on the prayer that I send out. And so I would say who is doing the praying is more critical in that situation. But I do understand the importance of a synchronized prayer, so to speak, to accelerate a process, because the energy is obviously greater.
Okay, Prince asked a question. My sister hates herself. We're 8 years apart, hates black men, even though we're the ones who looked out for her whenever she's in need. She's 25 years old. How can I change her perspective?
Well, that's going to require me to understand what traumatized your sister. What made your sister feel that way about black men? Maybe she has daddy issues. You guys sound like you've been hovering around her, looking out for her and protecting her, but someone traumatized her, it appears, and left a scar in which she has unresolved issues. And these unresolved issues can run deep, and to make you think that all men are like that. And we know none of us like to be placed in a basket like that, because all men are not a specific way. And when women say that, and I say, well, what signature are you putting out to keep attracting a specific type of individual? And so you guys need to find out what her trigger points are. What caused this? Because you don't just wake up and hate black men. And, in the history of black men, we've done some foul things. I'm not going to sit here and say we haven't. But we've also have black men who've stood up to the challenge and to the cause and have done the best that they could do, under the circumstances. And so a couple of messed up relationships, coupled with the fact that perhaps my dad wasn't around, can lead women down a spiraling road that it may take years to recover from, or they may never recover. And every time they see a black man, it regurgitates the trauma that they, have incurred or have endured. And so that is a very, deep thing to look into.
All right, continuing with relationship while you put your questions in the chat. So if you
Please
have a
put your
question,
questions in the chat. If you would like me to answer your question. No question is off limits. Don't ask me nothing goofy today. Let's try to keep it where I can really show you or help you if you're here for some help on a Sunday.
So you and I went out. We hung out with some other couples.
Yes.
And these couples were together for many years. Some were, fairly new. However, when the bill came, it became a little strange for a piece of change, I'll say. So let's talk about couples and their finances, right?
Yes.
We know how you and I roll. What I
Yes.
have, you have, vice versa. I stash my cash. You have what you have, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
do little TikTok stuff,
Yeah.
ordering and everything. But what do you think about couples and finances? Are they transparent or is it so separate?
Well-
Because then it became down, that's your friend, you pay the bill, I'll pay my portion, you pay your portion.
Yeah.
It got a little weird.
It did, but I also think that's another great question, finances and relationship. How you guys start a relationship. Now, I don't expect me to see your bank records when we first start. I don't mean that in the literal sense. But when I'm engaging in a woman that I want to have long, lasting relationship, or I can see a future, how you deal with finances is important. How you deal with pressure is important. How you deal with crisis is important, because eventually we may start on two different paths, but the more and more we come together, those finances are going to be critical in how we see money, because there are going to be times when we up and there are going to be times when we down. And I need to know that the temperament of our relationship doesn't change based on whether I have money or you have money. I would like to know that in our time together, if I don't have it, I don't believe in 50-50. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. I believe in there's going to be times when I'm going to have to cover 70% and you're going to cover 30%, and vice versa, based on who's making the most money at the time. Now, that doesn't mean you can't stash some money away, because Lord knows my wife has stashed plenty of money away for a rainy day. But I've also noticed if I needed it, out of the clear blue sky, that money appears. And when people are separate and secretive and divisive, how can we overcome a world that is, against us? We need all the resources we can get. So it's important early on in the relationship, you guys establish what the boundaries are. Because for some people, I don't care how long we've been together, this is my money and that's your money, and it's not a right or wrong, but it's all depending what you guys establish. Because like I said, I watch couples and they're sitting there, and me and my wife ain't never argued over a bill. Not only has she passed me a credit card under the table to pay the bill so that I can have a moment to shine, but we just pay the bill. We just go, let's just pay the bill and we'll figure out the rest. But those are things that we establish early on, that what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours, even to the point where I gotta sell everything in the house in terms of my equipment to pay the rent, and she's gotta pop her earrings and gold chains off to do the same. And those are a part of the wars and trials and tribulations that couples go through. But damn if my rent is due and you sitting on $10,000, and you know what I mean? And I've seen that happen, and I've seen a whole bunch of weird things happen, but if that's not established from the beginning, it could be tough.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen couples like, I give you an allowance? What the hell is that?
Yeah, I've seen that
Am I
too.
your child? Like,
Yes, I've
I
seen
don't get it.
Weird stuff going.
Yeah.
But again, how you were raised, and they said that it's weird. The less fortunate people are the most giving. Mm-hmm. And you see these tests on the street with these homeless people. Somebody will give them $20 and they'll split it with somebody else. And so it's how you perceive money. Yeah. It all boils down to that.
Malcolm wants to know, who's your favorite child?
Malcolm wants to know, who's my favorite child? That's a great question. They're all my favorite child based on who I'm talking to. So if you're in the chat right now, Malcolm, you are my favorite child. That's the way it all goes. Now, I do have one daughter, so she gets a little, extra, she's the only one. I got sons, they just come a dime a dozen, but the daughter is unique in that sense. So she would probably get the tiebreaker.
Okay, Let's Get Free asks, do you think there will be another lockdown like it was in 2020?
Not in the same capacity that it was, because you can't run the same game on us, because we are now hip to that process. Not only are we hip to it, the awakening that we're in right now, we have discussed where we went wrong or where we, you know what I mean? And so because we are an aware people now, or more aware than we were before, you can't run the same game. You have to up the ante, so to speak. And I'm not even sure that will work unless it's going to be, it has to be something extreme. And if it's going to be something extreme, there are always going to be those who fall victim to the propaganda anyway. We're not talking about them. They are just like we call knuckle draggers. They'll fall for anything and everything. Anything CNN and Fox says is the truth. They'll fall for that. So we're not talking about that. There is a different vibration of brothers and sisters around the planet who have stepped up their game of the bull crap that's going on. And so we're not going to fall for the same things. And so it would have to be something very extreme for us to go, okay, we're going to go back in the house. You know what I mean? Or they're going to have to put on such a grand show. And I'm not going to put it past them, but the show is going to have to be something so amazing that even we go, oh, this is crazy. And one thing Black Dot will always tell you, never abandon your common sense. And what I mean by, sometimes you got to get in a room and you got to walk the play out in your mind. And when it doesn't make any sense anymore, you go, this doesn't make common sense. So there's a glitch in what they're doing. Now, if it all makes common sense and you keep running it through your head, you know what I mean? But that last operation made no sense to me. None of it did. Standing 4 feet apart until we get on a plane and bunch in, being able to eat inside but outside of the inside restaurant, that didn't make no sense. Nobody was dropping dead. All these homeless people around, that didn't make no sense. Celebrities still signing big contracts, that didn't make, none of it made any common sense. And so I never panicked, even though a few people that we knew were passing away. But the one consistent thing is they kept going to the hospital. The ones who weren't going to the hospital were somehow recovering. The ones who were going into the hospital, and then they were getting put on them ventilators and all that stuff, which we found out later, each doctor or hospital was receiving an additional $40,000 every time they put somebody on a ventilator. We began to follow the money, and that made sense. So we knew that something just wasn't right. And so when you see these UFOs, or you see this, or you see that, bury yourself in a corner, a spiritual corner, where, and when I say bury yourself into a corner so you don't have to look behind you, you just got to keep everything in front of you and go, okay, let me walk through this and see where this is going. And then if it doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. And only worry about the things you can control anyway. You know, if aliens come down here, I can't fight no aliens, so I don't worry about it. If they're coming to pick me up, I'm ready. Let's go. Yeah. All right. DJ Jason said, how do you get creative spark back? How do you get your creative spark back? Very, very good question. You have to eliminate the noise. This external noise is the highest I think I've ever seen it, with social media and all the overall distractions deplete your creative spark. And then you got people around you, and it could be taxing with the job. You have to quiet yourself, and then you have to get back to the very discipline, because even creativity requires a level of discipline. right? And that level of discipline is boiling back to when it's time to write, I have to write. When it's time to produce them beats, I have to find some time to produce those beats, because if not, you're gonna drown in the chaos. All right, I miss Philly Bill. He said, Dot, who wins the presidential election? Where will you be? Where will
we be
as a people in 10 years? Well, the presidential selection, as we say, because it's hard for me to accept that this is an arbitrary system of free voters and they don't know who the president is going to be. How can I be elite if I don't know the game is fixed? How can I be elite if I can be voted out of office by regular people who can barely tie their shoe? So again, that makes no sense. So we know whoever they put in office is designed to be there as a figurehead to give you solace within yourself so that you can believe you live in a free country and you had something to do with that. People in power don't get voted out of power. Putin just won the election in Russia and it wasn't even close. He had no real competition. He knew he was going to win. And so this is how the elite stay elite. In 10 years, I believe, to answer the second part of that question, there's going to be a greater separation than there is now. And many are called, but the chosen are few. And those chosen few are those who choose themselves. So technologically speaking, we're making leaps. And I tell people all the time, at least understand the mechanisms of AI, because it is going to play a role in the future. But I'm always with AI over AI, so don't lose yourself in it, but immerse yourself enough so that you can understand the inner workings. Now, from a spiritual standpoint, I believe there's also going to be a quantum leap of individuals who are collected within a body of spiritual connectiveness, if that makes any sense, that's going to separate them from the ones who are just low vibrational, who are just in a survival mode, who are just here to eat, who succumb to fear and propaganda so much that their life totally is dependent on the ones who are screwing them in the first place. And these lines, this spiritual oneness is going to be the best of Chinese, original, indigenous people all over the planet who just raise themselves up and begin to understand the power, the superpower in our oneness in terms of saving humanity, as crazy as that may seem, versus the ones who are just in survival mode, who will eat themselves. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay, Fishbone wants to know, is there any natural remedies for serious mental health issues, like herbs?
From what I'm hearing now, mushrooms are about to be legal even in the pharmaceutical realms, because what they're finding out is that these mushrooms are truly magical. And so in our membership, it's a brother, Darren LeBaron, who does a 2 or 3 part series where he goes through mushrooms, the power of mushrooms, and he goes through it on multiple levels, for medicinal, for recreational, and for spiritual journeys. And so they're using it for Vietnam vets, not Vietnam vets, just people who are coming back from war, post-traumatic PTSD, and they're finding amazing results. But with anything of that nature, you go slow. You know what I mean? And you begin, and a lot of it also has to do with like how much mercury is in your body and metals. And so always a detox, first and foremost, will do some amazing things for you. And we overlook the most simplest processes, when it comes to dealing with mental health. And then it all boils down to what determines mental health. Some people who are deemed schizophrenia have the ability to just see the world differently. Some people who are dealing with autism can process so much information at such a rate that even they are, deemed with a mental illness. And so there's so many things that we in Western medicine define things as mental illness, which sometimes is a mental superpower that's just above or they're ahead of the vibrational frequency that we're operating in now. And it's a real weird dynamic. So they get frustrated because no one understands them and no one gets what it is that they can see or they can feel or they can hear. And so we have no choice but to call them, aloofs and things of that nature. But when medicine catches up, and I don't mean pharmaceutical medicine, our understanding of the mental capacity catches up to where a lot of these individuals are, it'll make more sense. But I'm hearing mushrooms has the ability to shorten or level that playing field so that some people can truly, truly benefit.
Yes, and to add on, we have meditation. Somebody mentioned chamomile.
Yes.
To relax you. Lavender helps to relax you.
Yeah, those
exercise, diet, getting proper sleep. But most importantly is being aware of your condition.
Yes, I'm going to say that too. Absolutely. So all of these things can help, but most of them drugs that they put you on, those don't help because you become dependent on those drugs. And then they tell you stuff like, don't stop this without your doctor's permission. Anything I can't stop without my doctor's permission, because what do we hear? Oh, they was off their meds and then they spazzed out, or, this and that. Jay Nightmare, thank you for the donation. Appreciate you so much.
Okay, Kush wants to know, can you explain the difference between confidence, arrogance, and self-esteem? But we're bougie.
Yeah, we're bougie here.
Here from the show.
I think there is a thin line between confidence and arrogance, and understanding where that line toes is different for every individual. So there's certain things I'm confident in, and confident is usually something that I prepared for. And so when Kobe shoots 500 jumpers a day, right, for 5 years straight before he becomes a pro, when he gets to the NBA or the moment comes about, he is very confident in his preparation for that situation. And so when it comes time for things that I've studied, let's say I've gone on a deep dive of hip hop, in, out, this, that, studied the parameters of it. When someone brings me somewhere or we're having a conversation about that, I'm confident that I might not have the best answer, but I'm confident I can give you a great answer. When it comes to raising children, I'm confident. I put 3 out of 4 kids through college, kids of multiple ages, this, that. I'm confident in those things. Certain other things I'm a little cocky in my ability to write music, and I might get a little cocky because it calls for that. And so we don't use the word humble no more because the definition of it wasn't what we thought it was, but be well grounded in those fields. And then it was the third part of that question. It was confidence, cockiness.
Confidence, arrogance, and self-esteem.
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 Right, self-esteem, again, that's how you feel good about something. And you can't fake self-esteem. Either you have it or you don't. I've seen some people who have an outwardly shell of confidence and self-esteem, But then when you get to talk to them, you realize that they're really not that confident in themselves. They just projecting something that they want you to think it is. And so for me, self-esteem is an internal thing that you have to work on, which may be expressed as confidence. And for those with low self-esteem, your confidence can be appeared as arrogance, if any of that makes sense. So they all are connected, but I'm gonna put it in that term. The internal is the self-esteem. The external expression is the confidence. The arrogance is how some people may appear to see it. Look up Kanye West. You'll get the whole definition of the word when he told you from the very beginning who he was going to be, and what he was going to do in this world. And he has the receipts from before you knew who he was to who he is now. And some people could say he's arrogant. I think he would be study Kanye West's life.
Okay, I think that's it for today. I want to thank everybody for the super chats.
Yes, yes.
If you have
any more questions in there? Any more questions? Let me see if I find one. I think that's it. A lot of people just here enjoying what it is that we're doing. Okay, all right. I think that's pretty much gonna do it. Okay, Dot, would it be game over for this 3D existence oppression if BM and BW, black men and black women, put down their anti-each other weapons and mutually embrace the love vibration instead? Great question. The highest vibration is love, and until we master it, and love is not always what you get out of it, it's what you're putting out, which was explained to me very deeply by a friend of mine. I believe Troy Benz was explaining how it's not a two-way street as much as you think it is. Your unconditional love for individuals, you're not worrying about what you receive in advance. And we got to get out of this tit for tat thing, because the true essence of love is when we come together, we can accomplish anything and everything that we want. My pops is in his second week of
read that one.
dialysis. How do you get the strength back? Mad love that. Well, the strength initially, very great question, is going to be a mental where you're going to be worn down mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically for about 6 months, because you don't want to be there. You're not accepting, this new transition in your life. I was literally having seizures the first 6 months, passing out because I didn't want to accept what was going on here. Once I accepted that this is what it was, and now I have to deal from here, because one thing I don't like doing, I don't like dealing from a place of what coulda, woulda, because it's wasted energy. I deal with the here and the now. And once I accepted that, and then I put myself on a regimen that works best for me, it is a very draining process. So make sure you have nutrients that go right back into your body right away. A juice of like minerals, sea moss is probably the best. You know what I'm saying? To just replenish the body right away. Now, what are the living conditions for Dad? Does he still have to work? Can he go home and sleep all day? Because I was fortunate enough to be able to go home and sleep for a day, 2 days if I needed. And everyone knew, don't mess with Daddy because Daddy needs his rest. But I had friends there who still had to work, or they got home and they lived in a crowded environment, and the home environment leads to stress, which is the #1 killer. So all of those things play into how Dad is going to, get through this crisis and this situation. But I want you to think not dialysis. I want you to think live-alysis. Okay, it's a phrase I coined, and I own the copyrights to. I'm sharing it with you guys now, right? Live-alysis, we can live until a better situation comes about. It is amazing what the body can endure when the mind is aligned. So make sure that his mindset is always at optimum, and the body will find ways to try to be here as long as his soul willfully wants to be here. And when it's ready to move on, it will.
Yes.
And with that being
He's
said,
retired.
Oh, he's retired. Great, 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 great. So listen, Hemp God, I want you to hit me at black.16@hotmail.com. Black.16@hotmail.com, because we can go through a more extensive conversation of some of the things that I do to just help me out. And so I would do that definitely for you, because there are many people who call me, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to this type of thing. And I do my best to help when I can. So with that being said, this is the Black Dot. These are my chronicles. This is my story. I'm sticking to it. I will see you guys next Sunday. Peace, and we'll see you tomorrow for regular showtime.